I had a fellow Addisonian reach out to me today about my food and what my diet looks like and if that changed at all with being diagnosed. So I thought I would share that as a video with others in case it resonates or helps other people find the way through food through healing. So yes, food has played a major role in my wellness and overall well-being as far as managing Addison's has gone. And I'll kind of go backpedaling about my food journey and what it took to get me where I am now, and then share what it is that I'm doing with my food on a regular daily basis to help me manage this condition. So I would say about 5 or 6 years ago was when I really got serious about what I was putting into my body and being mindful about what it was and where it was coming from and what I was doing with it. So what I mean by that is I started really being deliberate about only eating organic, clean, whole, real foods. And at that time, I wasn't really thinking about anything else. So all my fruits and vegetables were organic. All the meat that I was eating was organic. Everything was organic and clean and from local farmers or local places that I was aware of and familiar with, so that way I knew directly where my food was coming from and how long its life had been since either being slaughtered or being picked from the ground. So I continued on that journey for a while, and as I evolved with Addison's disease and my other conditions, I started exploring the Autoimmune Paleo Protocol, which I've talked a little bit about before, but I can go in depth here as we're talking about food. So I had another friend with an autoimmune disease that started AIP maybe about 4 years ago, and she just felt so much better. She constantly had more energy and just felt like it was what her body really needed. So obviously that resonated with me, and I began the Autoimmune Paleo Protocol. So previous to that, I was not eating any dairy, and I've known that I'm gluten intolerant since I was about 19. I've known that. So I was also not having any gluten. So at that point of starting AIP, I was already eating only organic fruits and vegetables and meats. I was not having dairy, and I was not having gluten. So really shifting into AIP was not super challenging for me. There were sure some components that made it difficult in the beginning, but once I made that full shift, I felt fantastic. And what AIP is, for those that don't know, is the Autoimmune Paleo Protocol is designed to help those with autoimmune diseases best function, as well as rebuild stomach lining to be able to tolerate other foods in the future. So at bare bones minimum, it is only fruits and vegetables, meats, no nightshades, which nightshades are a type of vegetable or fruit vegetable containing like eggplants, all peppers, tomatoes, goji berries, gooseberries. They seem like really unusual things, but in reality, it's these foods that cause inflammation in the body. So no nightshades, no nuts, no seeds, no dairy, and then high intake of meat and organ meats, which help rebuild the stomach lining. So also eliminating all grains, if I hadn't said that already. So I shifted into that, and I did that for about a few years pretty consistently and felt really, really good on that protocol. And honestly, I would say my fatigue waned, and I got a lot better in that regards. I hadn't been diagnosed yet, so I didn't really know what I was dealing with. I still had bad days, don't get me wrong. I have to manage my kitties. But overall, the Autoimmune Paleo Protocol got me to where I was in a good place, which honestly, when I ended up out at the Mayo Clinic, the doctors were saying that the way that I was eating was one of the only reasons I stayed alive. So yeah, food played a huge part for me. So Autoimmune Paleo Protocol, I was on that for a couple years. And then I connected with my good friend Tandy, who I've mentioned before in another video, and she has an online wellness, holistic studio that's really phenomenal, and I will put the link in here as well. But she created this food code, to crack your own food code, which was the ultimate game changer for me and my dietary issues. And it's a 41-day food reset that helps you break down and discover what foods your body has a reaction to and what those reactions mean. So she has this 41-day plan where you follow this diet, which is very similar to the Autoimmune Paleo Protocol. So trying this was not hard. But you get to add something new in every 3 days and notice how it feels in your body, and then what your reactions are to that and what that can mean for you. So after doing the paleo protocol, I shifted into the 41-day food reset, and I will be honest, it took me I've done the food reset 4 times now, but it took me maybe 2 times before it really, really resonated, and I finally discovered what foods work for my particular body and what I need. And that's what's really beautiful about what my friend Tandy says, is that every body is unique, and so there's no one cut way that's going to solve all problems. So even the things I'm suggesting now worked really well for me with Addison's disease, but they might not necessarily work for you, because everyone has their own unique body type and specific things that they need. So it's really important to explore all options that work for you. So I did the food reset a couple times, and then the really cool thing about that reset is you get to add foods in at a certain day. But when I got to a point, I just stopped adding specific foods in because I felt really, really good for the first time in ever with my digestion. Because for me personally, my digestion gets totally wrecked with Addison. So if I'm low cortisol, I will have terrible, terrible digestion and just being completely ill. Which what I mean by that is like distended belly, in so much pain, and it'll take days for that to dissipate and feeling better. So relief from food is amazing, especially when you haven't experienced it. So where I'm at now, what do I eat for my personal body with Addison's, is pretty much the same thing every day. I vary it very minimally, and my friends or people, acquaintances will be like, oh, I'm so sorry you can't eat anything else, or that must be so hard, like so annoying you can't have those things. But honestly, after years of discomfort and feeling ill and awful and unable to move because of the food that I've eaten, I don't mind it. I don't miss other things. I mean, I will miss foods from time to time, but I don't miss feeling awful every time I ate. Like, I have memories back from high school and college as a performer. If I was going to be in a play that night or had a show to do, I would not eat that day because I knew if I ate food, I would be so uncomfortable, so unable to function, that I would be miserable and not able to remember my lines or even move on stage or do choreography. So I just wouldn't eat. That was the best way for me to survive. Is if I had something to do, I would not eat food because food felt like poison at that time. And it was really because I didn't know about Addison's, but I also didn't know what foods worked and didn't work for me. So what am I doing now? I eat every morning. I have a pretty heavy protein meal. I will eat a couple eggs with a carb. So I have been able to reintroduce white rice, and I eat white rice and eggs and a ton of greens, collard greens or Swiss chard for calcium, or spinach, and then I'll chop up some fresh veggies like carrots or celery, and then my favorite sauce is lime juice. I just put lime juice on everything, and I'll have a little bit of lime juice, and then I coat everything in collagen or gelatin. It's ground up bones, which is, it took me a while to get over that in the beginning, but my particular body type with Addison's needs protein and calcium so heavily that when I don't have those things, I have more severe bed days and lower cortisol and a harder time recovering from the food or from that day. So protein is a must for me. Collagen is a must for me. Collagen also helped me rebuild my stomach lining so that way I could tolerate more foods in the future. So I'll have that for lunch, or for breakfast. For lunch every day, I usually like to have a smoothie because I have found my personal body is moving around and doing so much during the day that a smoothie is really easy to digest and I can get all nutrients from it. And typically my smoothies are almost always the same. I will put coconut water as my base, tons of antioxidant berries. So I'll do blueberries, strawberries, raspberries. I do not do really well with blackberries. I can have them, but it's not really worth it. Spinach, collagen, and sometimes I'll throw in bee pollen and some cacao if I'm feeling chocolatey. But I just vary on fruits or heavy vitamin smoothies for me is what I do for lunchtime. And then for dinner, I'll have another carb and protein heavy meal loaded with veggies. So sweet potatoes, squash, beets, parsnips, turkey. I'll usually have a meat protein at night, so I'll have turkey or chicken. I don't do really fantastic with chicken or with beef, but every now and then that's just the organic meat that's available to me, and I'll do okay with it. But turkey, I do the best with that protein, and fish, I do fantastic with seafood. So that'll be my dinner with all the veggies and rice, all the good things, and my lime juice on everything. And then throughout the day, I am the queen of snacks, because I don't know about you Addisonians, but for me personally, my blood sugar is like all over the place. And if I do not eat something, I am 100% like that old lady in the Snickers commercial where she's gonna kick someone's butt. But I will eat dried mango. I will have Epic bars, which are these meat protein bars, really the only bars that I can have. And the meat is so heavy for me too, because I have found that I cannot do nuts, I cannot do beans, I cannot do seeds. None of those things work in my body because they're so hard to digest. Any challenging foods with Addison's disease just cost more cortisol, because in case you didn't know, that aren't aware of that, it takes cortisol to digest food. So if you can eliminate any foods that your body doesn't particularly digest well, or foods that are hard to digest or that you don't tolerate, you're going to save cortisol and save spoons and feel so much better. So knowing what foods are hard to digest in your body is detrimental for Addisonians or people with low cortisol issues. So the Epic bars are a huge snack for me. They're a bison-based bar that I typically eat. I said dried mango, coconut butter. I love coconut butter, good fats. And then that balances me out. And then because I have pretty severe osteoporosis, I'm a big advocate for some goat cheese and some goat yogurt. I'll eat that throughout the day. But I'm constantly snacking to keep my blood sugar stable and to keep my energy going as well. So things that I have found that do not do well in my body at all, and this is a funny one with Addisonians because I know so many people live on it, is I cannot really tolerate caffeine. I like caffeine. It's really cool to have that burst of energy, but the most I can tolerate is green tea. Even kombucha will kind of send me into overdrive, and it makes it really hard for me to breathe, and I'll end up having panic attacks that day if I drink a kombucha. What'll really set me over edge is coffee. So coffee is a big no-no in my world, and I know many Spoonies live on it, but I've found that it doesn't do well for me, and I do so much better without it. So if you are a heavy caffeine drinker with low cortisol levels or with Addison's disease, I implore you to, if you feel in a safe space or the ability to do so, to explore minimizing your caffeine intake, because that really had a major impact on my cortisol and how I felt after that. And then in general, like, we know some of the no-nos with Addison's disease are like, and I really don't understand all the science behind it, and obviously maybe someone else can chime in here and share, but on our steroids, on hydrocortisone, you can't have grapefruit. It's a super bizarre thing, but the grapefruit juice and grapefruits in general counteract with our steroid, and it actually cancels out the steroid. So it's basically robbing you of all cortisol. So grapefruit is a huge no-no as far as Addisonians go. So if you are an person with Addison's disease, or someone you know has it, and they're eating grapefruit, allow them the knowledge, give them the knowledge to stop that, because that's going to mess with their intake of pills. It's like 5 o'clock, which I just took my pill, and so brain fog is setting in. I'm trying to think if there was anything else that I wanted to share. I think in general, like, finding what works in your body is so necessary. And when all else fails, eat as much whole, like, clean foods as possible. the best that you can do for your body is eating really carefully, eating really mindfully, and eating really, really clean, because we have so much other stuff happening with our bodies on a regular basis that the last thing we need to challenge ourselves with is digestion issues and poor food, because the food is going to affect how we move, how we think, and how we function. And if I'm eating fresh things and real whole foods and real proteins and solid things, I'm going to be able to function so much better than if I were to eat something out of a box or packaged, which I do not do at all anymore. Maybe on the very rarest of occasion I will have something out of a box, but even then it's going to be bare minimum of ingredients. I always say my rule of thumb is 5. If you find a box or something or a can or anything on it and it has more than 5 ingredients, don't go there, because that's just too much stuff loaded in one thing. But also, if you don't know what something is on a label, don't eat it. Why would you put anything into your body if you don't know what it is? If you go into your cabinet and turn a box over and see that you have like 50 ingredients in a box of your cereal, I suggest you going through and looking up what each of those ingredients are and learning a little bit more about what you're putting into your body. And I know a lot of people think that buying organic and eating that kind of food is really expensive and they just can't afford it. I hear you. But as someone who is, living paycheck to paycheck, I implore you to please make this investment. It is literally the one thing I spend my money on. I spend my money on rent, bills, medicine, and organic foods. Those are the only things I buy. I do not do anything else. I don't go out. I don't drink alcohol. There's nothing that I spend my money on. There's nothing more important to me than eating healthy organic foods, because foods that are of pesticides on them or chemicals, it's just going to make you sicker. And in the long run, it's better to pay more in small increments for your organic fruits and vegetables and meats versus eating all that cancer fueling food and ending up with more conditions and ailments in the future. And then water. Water is my best friend. I drink water all day long. I joke, even before I was diagnosed with Addison's disease, I've always said that I'm a mermaid at heart, colored hair, like I've lived in the ocean when I grew up in Oregon. But now even more so as an Addisonian, having to drink salt water all day long, I drink like at least 1 to 2 gallons of salt water and water a day. So just hydrate. That's a huge game changer for me, and being really mindful and aware about what I put in my body. So that's what I do for food. That's my overall food plan. And please reach out if you have questions or share what works for you. I know there's a lot of people that are doing keto, or there's a lot of people who are following other like paleo as well. And again, there's not one way. Find out what works for you, try other things, share with each other so that way we can help each other feel better than before. Okay, thanks so much.